One, call to order the October, what did they say, 26th, East Bank Stadium Committee meeting, and sorry for the delay. We've had delay with getting technology going. Hopefully it stays working. Usually when it, so now it's beeping at us. We're going to hope that doesn't keep going. I'm going to turn it over to Finance Director Flannery to make introductions for the Mayor's Office negotiating team.
Thank you, Chairman Mendez. Thanks again for hosting us. I think this is at least the third specially called meeting this week alone. So thanks to all of council. If anyone thinks this is a part-time job, I think this week's indication is that it's not. But I think what I learned, especially, I don't know if anyone saw Monday's Fund Balance meeting, is that these meetings are really valuable, and this is kind of where all the work gets done. So I know it's inconvenient, but I appreciate it and greatly hope we can keep doing them. So I want to take a couple minutes and introduce the team we have here. As a product of a small dais, I drew the short straw, and I get to represent all of Metro. So on the Metro team, I think you've seen us in prior meetings. I have the Deputy Mayor, Sam Wilcox, Deputy Director of Law, Tom Cross, Jeff Oldham, partner at Bass Berry and Bond Counsel. And as you know, this deal is really special, right? We don't get these a lot. And so we very quickly realized that we needed some expertise external to kind of our usual cadre. And I'm really thrilled to have some of that team here with us today. And I want to take a couple minutes and just let them introduce themselves and talk about their background and their experience and how they've been helpful in this transaction. So I guess we'll start with, to my left is Willie de Blasi at Inner Circle Sports.
Sure. Thank you very much, Kelly. My name is Willie de Blasi with Inner Circle Sports, and we are advisor to Metro on the stadium negotiations. Our firm is a sports-focused investment bank and advisory shop where myself and my colleague David Abrams, who you'll hear from shortly, run our stadium and arena finance and advisory practice. Prior to being in Inner Circle, I spent over a decade at Goldman Sachs in the public sector and infrastructure group, where I specialized in sports infrastructure finance and stadium and arena advisory, working on more than a dozen stadium and arena projects around the world.
And thanks, Willie. And over at the table also from Inner Circle Sports, we have David Abrams.
Does it come out? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. It's nice to be here. I'm David Abrams, also with Inner Circle Sports. I'm about a little bit older, so about 35-year career in investment banking, maybe pushing close to 40 years, and started in the sports advisory business in the late 80s. And I've had the pleasure of working with a number of NFL teams and communities in building. This would be my 6th NFL stadium among many other sports stadia around the United States and some internationally. And I, too, worked in the municipal finance groups of Bear Stearns, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and Jefferies, building infrastructure around the globe, as well as sports stadia and arenas. And just a pleasure to be here and happy to answer questions.
Thanks, David. And to my right, Franklin, sometimes called Frank Jones, with Greenberg Trarick.
Thank you, Kelly. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I need to get a little closer. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for having us. My name is Frank Jones. I'm with Greenberg Trarick. I'm based in our Houston office. I've been part of our sports and entertainment facilities practice since around 2005. Started working in this space in the mid-90s. First engagement was with the Harris County Houston Sports Authority, which was an entity formed by the state of Texas to help cities in Texas start to build these type of facilities after our beloved team, which I won't name, moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So I've worked on about 6 NFL stadium projects and other major league facilities, and really excited to be here working with all of you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to report that my first two slides are a recap of what we provided. I guess it's been a month ago now, so we can catch up hopefully a little bit on these ones. But I do want to run through them really quick again. The guiding principles, it was really imperative to the mayor and the entire team that we kind of set some guardrails for this transaction. And those are included here. Reduce the burden on Metro's general fund. We've talked about that a lot in the existing exposure we have on the existing lease, and how do we eliminate that? We wanted to ensure that the private resource is the largest contributor to the project. We wanted to leverage the contributions from the state partners, and that's not just the state's bond contribution, but the new revenue sources that the legislator at the state level has afforded us. We wanted to make sure that Metro retained ownership of the stadium, and that we were able to recoup the development rights for the land that we have around the stadium. And we wanted to make a solution that isn't just a stadium anymore, and it generates economic activity and benefits for Nashville and activates the site all year round, not just for game days. And we want to make sure that we keep the NFL in Nashville in the long term. And I think the term sheet that we've circulated last week and that we'll walk through today fulfills all of those guiding principles. And just a reminder on the financing goals, and we'll talk about calendar a little bit at the end, and we do not have a financing plan here today. The goal for today is for you to react to the term sheet, and over the next, October, 2-3 months, to provide feedback and counsel and what you're expecting to see in the next several months and what those documents should look like. And the goals for the financing are to leverage the stadium funding sources, and those are the new ones that the state has given us the authority to collect, and to ensure the credit quality and minimize the interest costs. And I know I talked about last time the goal of avoiding the backstop for Metro. And we will consider it if we need it for credit requirements or to limit excessive interest costs. And we've done that in other sports and tourism deals, but it remains a goal to try not to do that. And that credit support could be, and historically has been, the non-property tax revenues of the city, but it could look like the pilot payment that we've been using for water and sewer that's funding the project. But you'll see in the term sheet, there is an expiration on that. It cannot go beyond the existing term of the lease. And so with that, I'll get to the meat and kick it over to Franklin Jones to discuss the high-level overview.
Thank you, Kelly. And before I get started, I do want to just make overall statement about the term sheet. While it is non-binding, as you all are aware, I have to tell you, it was a heavily negotiated term sheet. It's very detailed. It describes a very substantive business deal that I think is strong enough for both parties to feel comfortable moving forward with this committee and the council taking action later on, and the team also engaging in the process they need to go through to start planning the stadium. And they will spend substantial amounts of funds to get this process started, and we are hopeful that this agreement makes everybody feel comfortable with starting that process. The first thing we want to talk about is the stadium site and development. The stadium will be approximately 60,000 seats, new first-class state-of-the-art enclosed facility, and will be located on approximately 15 acres on the eastern portion of the East Bank property, pretty much adjacent to the current facility. The stadium cost is currently estimated to be about $2.1 billion. This includes site preparation, demolition of Nissan Stadium, all public infrastructure necessary to open the stadium, and a reasonable construction contingency. At design and construction, the Titans will be responsible for the design, development, and construction of the stadium on behalf of the authority under a project development agreement that we're currently negotiating. The parties will agree on a base stadium plan in the project development agreement, and the authority will have approval rights over the base stadium plan and any material revisions to that plan. And while that base stadium plan sounds like something very simple, we want to assure you that this will be a very detailed plan. Certainly the public will not be involved in all the minutia of the design of the building, but the very substantive pieces of the project that are important to the public will be described in this plan, and the authority will have the ability to approve those elements of that plan. It is also the goal of the parties that the stadium achieve LEED Gold certification when it is completed. The proposed funding structure, overview of the project funding. The Titans, Metro, the authority, and the state will enter into a project funding agreement, which will dictate the following contributions. $840 million from the team, the NFL, and PSLs. The Titans have also agreed to be responsible for all cost overruns for the construction project. There'll be a $500 million one-time state contribution, and $760 million from the Sports Authority revenue bonds to be repaid from available sources generated by tourists and users of the stadium and the area around the stadium, which will be further described in the next slide. There will also be a release of other authority obligations. The Titans have agreed to waive any claim they have against the authority for reimbursement of previous capital improvements in Nissan Stadium, currently estimated to be around $32 million. And the Titans have also agreed to repay 100% of the authority's existing stadium bonds, which we believe to be around $30 million. The available sources for funding for the authority revenue bonds, and please remember that these revenue sources are specifically available only for the purpose of building the new stadium or infrastructure or improvements around the stadium. The first revenue source is a new 1% hotel occupancy tax available via state statute to only fund a new enclosed stadium facility. We have 100% of the state and local sales tax from Nissan Stadium and the new stadium available via state statute to only fund NFL stadium facilities. And finally, 50% of the state and local sales tax collected within a zone of up to 130 acres contiguous to the new stadium available via statute to only fund NFL stadium facilities and infrastructure and other improvements related to the new stadium. There will be a continuation of the 3% ticket tax currently being levied at Nissan Stadium, and the Titans will also make a rental payment equal to 3% per ticket to all non-NFL events at the stadium. Dollars, sorry, forgive me. NFL-related funding sources will be private financing sources, including owner equity, secured loans, and an NFL G4 loan. And also, they will be contributed this money from the sale of personal seat licenses. Application of excess revenues. Any excess authority revenue after the payment of debt service will be applied as follows. To a maintenance and repair fund in the amount equal to the sum of all ticket tax and rent revenues to be used for capital repairs and non-operating maintenance at the stadium. To the Metro government, an amount equal to area sales tax revenues if needed to fund the cost of sales tax eligible infrastructure, campus infrastructure, or public improvements that are related to the stadium per state statute, for example, stadium-related parking. To a capital reserve fund, capital repair reserve fund, up to an amount to be agreed to between the authority and the Titans in the currently being negotiated stadium lease. And any remaining funds will be deposited to an authority surplus fund to be used by the authority to retire authority bonds or provide additional funding to the capital repairs reserve fund. And a very important point, at Metro's election, the hotel tax may be terminated upon the retirement of any authority bonds and the funding of 120% of the total amount scheduled to be deposited in the capital repairs reserve fund during the term of the lease. Stadium operations and maintenance. The Titans will be responsible for all costs of the stadium project, including, without limitation, operating expenses, utilities, maintenance costs, capital repairs, and capital improvements. The Titans will also be responsible for insurance costs at the new stadium, which is currently a cost being borne by the authority at Nissan Stadium. Operational and maintenance standards will be developed to be consistent with comparable NFL stadiums, and the team will be obligated to comply with these standards. Capital expenditures. Neither Metro nor the authority will have any obligation for capital expenditures at the new stadium. Except for deposits available in the Capital Repairs Reserve Fund, as described before, the Titans will be responsible for all capital repairs, replacements, and improvements at the new stadiums. In addition, every 3 years, the Titans, at their sole cost, must engage a third party to produce a capital asset management plan to identify stadium maintenance and capital repairs and improvements required during the upcoming 10-year period. Lease structure and non-relocation. The authority will own the stadium and lease it to the Titans for an initial period at least equal to the initial stated term of the authority bonds, plus 3 5-year renewal terms at the team's option. The team exercising this option should be viewed positively because the team stays in Nashville and remains committed to maintaining the new stadium. The authority will also lease the stadium to TSU on terms and conditions generally consistent with the current lease, subject to limited approval by the team. The Titans will retain all revenues from operating the stadium except for TSU events. The CMA Fest revenue streams will continue to be shared by the authority, and the authority will have use of the stadium field for 5 civic events every year and reasonable use of other areas of the stadium and the stadium site. The Titans will also sign a non-relocation agreement, which will be coextensive with the term of the stadium lease, including extensions. The terms of this non-relocation agreement will be similar to agreements around the league, which include specific performance for making the team stay, or liquidated damage if they do choose to leave and we do not win in court on specific performance. Campus development and parking. Metro will oversee the development of those areas of the campus outside of the stadium site, including the stadium village, located directly north and south of the new stadium. Metro will be responsible for all necessary infrastructure for the development of the campus, other than those costs included within the stadium project budget to be performed by the team. A site coordination agreement will be developed and negotiated with the team, which will address certain collaboration between Metro, the authority, and the Titan on certain aspects of the development and operation of the campus. Parking. Metro and the authority will ensure that Stadium Village will accommodate a to be agreed number of parking spaces for player and other Titan parking needs. The authority will ensure that a minimum of 2,000 parking spaces are available within the campus for the exclusive use of the team during stadium events. The team will retain net parking revenues from all stadium events except TSU and CMA events, and the authority will be entitled to use such spaces and retain all net parking revenues at all other times. And that includes a brief summary of the term sheet. Thank you.
Almost. Thank you, Frank. So Frank went through the application of excess revenues. We understand it can be helpful to look at these things visually. So we have here an outline of that application that Frank walked through with boxes and arrows. Before sort of getting started on walking through the detail, I'd like to preface it by saying that this does not represent a finance plan or exactly what will happen. Rather, this is a representation of what may happen and what is available to flow through an authority bond issuance. So with that, I'll get started. The revenue streams here on the very top, as Frank went through from left to right, are the 50% area sales tax, all of the in-stadium sales tax, the hotel tax, and the ticket tax and team rent. That will first flow through to debt service, or may flow through to debt service in some combination on sports authority bonds, to be paid in the order of hotel tax first, in-stadium sales tax, ticket tax and team rent, and then finally, in this instance, the area sales tax. Once annual debt service has been paid, then an amount equal to the ticket tax and team rent, if available, will flow to a maintenance and repairs account, which you see in the orange on the right-hand side of the page. From there, an amount equal to roughly the area sales tax will flow into an account, to Metro, to be available for certain stadium-related infrastructure that the area sales tax is eligible to be used for. The most obvious example at the moment would be parking around the stadium. Then from there, any additional excess will flow into a stadium CapEx reserve fund up to a defined annual amount, which will be in the to be negotiated stadium lease. And then finally from there into a sports authority surplus fund, which can be used at the authority's election to either prepay authority bonds or fund additional CapEx in the CapEx reserve fund. And finally, as Frank mentioned, if the CapEx reserve fund is funded to 120% of the required amount in the lease, then Metro has the ability to repeal the 1% hotel tax. And I will turn it back to Kelly to talk through schedule.
Thank you. I think the one thing that consistently we hear as both the finance department, law department, and the administration is that we're not great at giving you adequate time to review. And we're doing that on this one. I think we're really intentional about coming to you with, a 4 to 6 month timeline to do the homework and ask the questions. While I hope everyone gets to a place where they appreciate this opportunity is special and takes a real liability off the books for us. If you can't get there, it shouldn't be because you didn't understand it or you didn't have the information. And we're going to make sure that is not the case in this transaction. So for between now and the end of the year, the goals are, thanks to the chair and the committee members and all of you that are on the committee that are here, I think we have, eight meetings scheduled in the process. How many?
12.
12. Does that include community meetings as well?
Yeah.
And community meetings. And this entire group or some subset of them, is committed to attending as many of them as we can. We're looking forward to, we heard a lot about the VSG report. I've kind of seen the same things you've seen. I'm looking forward to seeing it and reviewing it and bringing back to you kind of a comparison. What does renovation look like versus replacement? I think I'd like to see it. I'd like you to see it. I think we should all see it. And we will keep coming back to you. But there are 3 pieces of legislation that have been circulated, and that is the term sheet to approve. And again, as Franklin mentioned, it's non-binding, but it's meaningful, especially to our partners at the team. And to ask them to keep going and start outlaying cash without some level of commitment from this organization is just frankly not fair. And so that is what that document is meant to do. We will work on definitive documents. We will continue to negotiate with them, but they need to have a nod that we're committed to the project. And I think that's a really fair ask. The other thing that we're looking for approval on is an RFQ to go out and get some qualifications for a development team to do the campus development work or some version of it. And the third thing is the approval for additional 1% hotel tax that shockingly somehow takes a lot of time to update in our financial system, so we kind of need some runway on that one. So it's, I guess what I'm thinking between now and the end of the year is a really strong nod from this group that the bucket of revenues that we're contemplating, that you support them, that you're giving us the green light to go forward, to develop a financing plan that we would then bring back to you with greater detail for you to then digest. And I think Franklin said it best earlier today is we need hard graders. We need you guys to go and look at it and ask us the hard questions. We'll do that all day long. And these are special projects that we don't see all the time. So while we have all the experts and we've thought of as much as we can think of, the more questions, the better for all of us, for our partners at the state, for our partners at the team, for us as an organization. So that's what we're looking for between now and the end of the year. First quarter, almost done, promise. First quarter, we will hopefully bring to you all the definitive documents, and we're still putting together what that list looks like. I think what you've seen in the previous, soccer stadiums is things like a lease agreement, a development agreement. For this, you'd obviously a non-relocation agreement. There will be a ton of documents that come to you. The expectation is not to drop them all at you in one legislation, but to continue verbalizing, and we'll figure out how we want to communicate that to you, but that is our commitment to do all that for you. Obviously, Sports Authority will need to vet them as well. They'll need to approve. We will continue to come back to you. And then the expectation is Q2, Q3, we're finalizing the budget. The team in the state, we've come up with a plan on how we're all going to get our money in at the same time, and then we will issue debt at that time. So.
Thank you very much. And so we're going to go to questions now, and this is the way we're going to handle it. Councilman Druffel has to go. He's on the committee, so I'm going to have him first. And then I've got hopefully 5 questions that I want to ask, and then I see Councilmember Johnston, and then and then I'll start writing y'all's names down after that and get through everybody. So we're going to start with Councilmember Druffel.
Thanks, Chair. First, and these may not be answerable right away, but what is the consideration, or how is the infrastructure established, and what are the costs for the infrastructure of the entire project? And then the 2 is flooding. I know we brought that up before. That whole campus was under water in 2010. How will that be influenced or impacted? So those are 2 of my questions.
So one housekeeping item I didn't mention, Deputy Mayor Wilcox has the esteemed responsibility today of delegating questions to the appropriate responsible parties. So
And
they're not decoration, they're going to talk.
Okay, thanks.
And then let me add, like we did during the summer, any questions that anybody has that might not be able to answer today, or you think about them on the drive home or in the coming week or whenever, Danielle Godin in the council office is where you're going to send your questions. Like before, we're going to get them all answered, and questions online on the committee webpage. And so so that's going to be open, and we need to use that to get the best possible answers. So go ahead.
This is Jeff Oldham, as Kelly said, partner at Bassbury & Sims. Let me try to break down infrastructure into parts. The first part is, I'm going to call it stadium infrastructure. And this is infrastructure that you have to fund in order to get the stadium up and operational. All of that infrastructure is in the stadium project budget. And so that $2.1 billion number estimate is inclusive of all of that. And so the stadium could be built, you could do no more, and the infrastructure stops. Obviously, as indicated by the campus development resolution that's also in front of you, everybody's hope is that the balance of the campus be developed. And if that happens, there will absolutely be infrastructure costs. That also, I think, falls into 2 buckets. There is, as Willie alluded to, I think this is my term, and it's terrible, but it's the best one I could think of, sales tax eligible infrastructure. And what that means is that 50% area sales tax is capable of funding not only stadium costs, the stadium itself, but also infrastructure that's directly related to the stadium. And I thought Willie hit on the thing that jumps right out at you is any parking that's going to be utilized as part of the stadium, that would be eligible. So there's a funding source for, and I'm not here to try to match up necessarily revenues and costs line for line, but think of that as a bucket. The rest of it is sort of what you would think of as sort of ordinary course infrastructure and public assets that you've seen as part of the East Bank sort of discussion. And I don't think this is really the goal tonight to get into all of that, but there is the goal of the administration is to ask developers, the campus developers, to fund those costs as part of the ground lease and development agreement arrangements that we would end up entering into with them when that time comes.
Thanks. And so the second part of that infrastructure, as it expands, will be used, or the developers will pay for that infrastructure? Is that what you're saying?
That's the goal.
Okay, thanks. And then the second question, you'll indulge me, Chair, is the flood aspect. It's a huge project, and not only the 2.1 billion, but the whole area. So how are we going to handle the flood prevention?
Thank you for your question on the flooding. And one of the pieces of legislation we introduced with this package is an RFQ to go find a developer. Part of that development process on the design process is to develop a grading plan. And so that is going to play a big part, and I think planning may be coming back in one of the later meetings can talk a little bit more about how this works, but the grading plan is going to be a big part of the resiliency, the overall resiliency of the site. What we do know is very little of the site is currently in the 100-year floodplain. There is some sensitivity once you start looking at the 500-year floodplain around the bridges, which we all can remember from 2010. But those issues are going to have to be addressed in partnership with the developer when we do the design and the grading for the entire site overall. But it's something that we're highly sensitive to. We know it's an issue on the site, and it's a top priority for us.
Yeah, thanks. I've heard a lot before, and question will be with the 100-year floodplain or the 500-year floodplain. Has that been determined, or is that?
We haven't made that determination. Okay. We'll need a development partner to help us think through that. But we've, as part of the East Bank Vision Plan, planning also worked with Sherwood Design, which is I think I mentioned it at our last meeting, but they've really been our advisors on this. And so they're going to develop those recommendations in partnership with the developer.
Thanks very much. Yep. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Councilman. And if you need to go, I understand. All right. I'm going to ask some questions, and I've got Johnson, Parker, Porterfield. Anybody else want to get in the queue now? All right, just wave at me if so. I'm going to try to keep mine short, and it could be that the answer is we don't know yet. It's yet to be negotiated, but I just want to make sure. What's the intended size of the Capital Repair Reserve Fund?
To be negotiated still.
Is it safe to say it'll be in the hundreds of millions of dollars? I got a head nod yes over there.
Yeah.
All right. And then
can I qualify that? It'll be the total capital repairs fund will almost certainly be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I think what Director Flannery would point out is the point of the excess waterfall is dedicating revenue streams, and we're not going to be able to give you a number on that yet until we're farther along in the financing plan.
I'm just trying to get, I understand. I just wanted to get the ballpark. I mean, if we're talking about funding, several decades of a capital repair reserve fund, it stands to reason that schedule, when it's negotiated into the stadium lease, will surely be designed to generate hundreds of millions of dollars, some number of hundreds.
Right.
All right. And then similarly, there's a defined term, campus infrastructure, with no amount on it. I assume that's left to be figured out in the future?
Yeah, correct.
And the cost of the 2,000 parking spaces isn't in the term sheet. I assume that's left to be figured out in the future also?
Yeah, again, this is one of the reasons why we've come to you all with the resolution for the RFQ. A lot of that will be costed in partnership with the developer. I think the key part is that the way that we've accounted for that is that we believe that a portion of the area sales tax will be able to be dedicated to paying for that.
And I guess that would be additional revenue bonds issued and then paid for from some portion of the area sales tax?
Yes, let me, if I can talk just about parking for just a minute. Yeah. So I think it's maybe helpful to understand the current lay of the land, and I think I have these numbers right. Right now, you've got roughly 7,500 surface parking spaces that surround the stadium, and you have 1,250 that immediately surround the stadium that are completely controlled by the Titans. The balance are theirs on game days, ours the rest of the time. The new commitment to the 2,000, it's not that we go build 2,000, it's that we commit at all times to maintain at least 2,000 spaces in the campus. So, for example, if you take out we'll talk about the Stadium Village, I'm sure, in the moment. If you take all that out, it's A, B, C, and D, maybe those parking lots. That knocks the inventory down to, I think, 3,600. So the stadium project itself will knock us down to 3,600. No obligation at that point because we hadn't hit 2,000 yet. The theory is then if we choose to then develop in such a way that we knock 3,600 down below 2,000, once we get to 1999, we got to start providing parking.
Well, so I appreciate that nuance, but just if the city is going to build what's in the pretty pictures, it'll require
That's fair, yeah,
parking
absolutely,
decks.
yeah. And so, no, that's exactly right. And so, again, the plan, absolutely. So the plan, and then as that development happens and that obligation arises, the goal is that the sales taxes that would be derived from that development would be enough to, primarily support a revenue bond issue of the type you described.
All right, thank you. And then Stadium Village, you anticipated the question. The piece that I think Mr. Smith mentioned, that the city would be responsible for developing and paying for the infrastructure in the Stadium Village. I didn't catch that in the term sheet. I thought the term sheet said that it basically had an open slate for the Stadium Village and doesn't say what the cost is or who will pay for it.
Sure, yeah. So I'm going to try to, it's maybe a little more backstory than you want.
And for people who are watching, the Stadium Village, again, will be designed to be 20 acres immediately next to the new stadium.
That's right. So it's the rectangle just to the east. And so there was back to, I guess, one of the stated goals that Kelly mentioned is that the mayor's office has already said, we want to recoup that land for us to develop. And that's always been the goal, the stated goal, the plan. There was a time in the negotiations where the Titans said, that's fine, we'd like to be the developer, and you ground lease that village land to us at fair market value so that we can develop something and, in connection with the stadium. There was some discussion about that, and while that discussion was going on, it was sort of a helpful delineation to talk about the Stadium Village as being one kind of development, and the campus, which would happen another way. As it evolved, we have evolved to where we're going to control everything. We're going to control the development, both in the Stadium Village and the campus, no different. And so in some sense, that distinction has gone away, but there are still a handful of places it shows up in the term sheet that are important. One is that the team has agreed that when they do the infrastructure to get the stadium up out of the ground, since the village is so close and running the water line just a little further, or the sewer line a little further, sort of a no-brainer, and why wouldn't you do it, all at the same time? They've agreed to provide infrastructure not just for the stadium, but for the Stadium Village. So there's...
And for that infrastructure, for the Stadium Village, if I heard right, Metro it'll be done as part of the stadium project, but not included in the $2.1 billion separately?
It is included in the $2.1 billion.
Okay. And then the actual, what comes up above the ground there is blank slate right now?
Well, so then let's do two more things. One is that I think both parties recognize that we're controlling the development in the Stadium Village, but it needs to be done in a way that's collaborative with the stadium. It needs to work on game days, and it needs to work the rest of the time too. And so we're cognizant of that. They certainly want that. And so there will be a level of coordination, I think, in development in the Stadium Village. I mean, you'll see coordination, I think, throughout, but in a more intense level of coordination in the Stadium Village. So there's another distinction. And the last is the stadium is not just the four corners of the building. There's some loading and staging, and then, their request for some amount of dedicated player parking, as an example, and additional parking that we still have to figure out how to sort of accommodate what they need in order for the stadium to function properly and us to maximize our development rights. And so in that sense, there's sort of a different discussion about the stadium village than there is the campus as a whole. So that's why that it sounds like it means more than it does, but that's the difference.
And I guess for today's purposes, I guess my core question is that's all to be negotiated yet going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main negotiation on that point is to figure out how to best balance our, not really competing interests, but how to give the stadium what it needs to operate like we all want it to operate and maximize our development opportunity. That's the big thing. I think the coordination and collaboration on development, I don't think there's a lot of negotiation. I think we're all on the same page, about that. So that's really it.
All right, I appreciate it. And then, folks, I just have one more. And I guess this is directed to Director Flannery. The last piece you talked about the parties deserve or are owed a heavy nod that we're headed in the right direction. I guess I just want to understand how that meshes with the term sheet, because the term sheet on its face says it's solely for the purpose of facilitating ongoing discussions, and expressly says that if anybody expends money on the stadium project on the basis of the term sheet, that should be at the sole risk of the party incurring it in recognition that the term sheet is non-binding. And so I've legitimately struggled with, if the term sheet says on its face it's only for the purpose of facilitating discussion and any money spent is completely the other party's risk, it seems like our approval from the council should be just as non-binding and general as the term sheet. I'm just trying to understand how to fit those together.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. The approval of the term sheet does not hold Metro responsible for any reimbursement or to cover any of the costs that anyone has outlaid. But there's a reality and a timeline that we're trying to achieve, and that is, 2026, 2027. And to do that, you got to get going. And we're chasing construction costs as well. And the planning, that is in the magnitude of tens of millions of dollars. And to ask the team to outlay those dollars without some sort of comfort level around the proposed funding sources, if you guys are a no, I think you owe them the answer of we're a no on these funding sources, and we can revert and see if there's other options. Spoiler alert, I don't have any other options. I don't know. A lot of these revenues are dedicated to the construction of a new facility, some of them specific to a new domed facility. So I don't know how you solve for that, but I think it's a lift to ask someone to come out of pocket when we spend the next 6 months. If you're a no, be a no, and I think we owe that to them.
So I'm going to, just speaking for myself, push back kind of aggressively on that. We get the council, before you were here, other administrations were accustomed to getting sort of hustled in that round one we get told it's non-binding, it doesn't matter, like you've got plenty of time to decide on the final documents. And then when we get to the second round, somebody will play the video, what you just said, saying, hey, you committed, you told them the funding sources were generally fine, so what's your beef? And it just, to me, the thing says non-binding, super duper non-binding, facilitate ongoing discussions only. And any notion that a vote from us means anything more than continue the discussion at your own peril would be unfair to us. And that's just my commentary. I think Councilman Johnson's next.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
I'm going to push back a little bit on you. I'm not going to apologize for bringing this to you early to get your reaction to it. I think that's the best approach. And so, sure, we could have waited until first quarter 2023 and brought you a more comprehensive deal and hoped for the best. But that feels unfair. And I won't apologize for trying to be transparent around the process.
Yeah, but you could bring it to us and get a reaction in a work session like we did on Monday on a different topic without a vote, right? Without turning on the hotel occupancy tax?
Yeah, we can turn it on or not. the reality is that the amount that gets kicked off that hotel revenue is meaningful, but it's not going to scratch the itch of what the team needs to do the planning work. I mean, if it's $1 million a month and we don't start collecting it, charging it till February, collecting it, in arrears until May or June, that is not, scratching an itch for the team. They are coming out of pocket, and that's okay. That you're the policy drivers, and that's a decision. I'm bringing what I think is a fair request.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. This whole part of this conversation has been a little bit alarming to me, because I feel like if you're coming to us for a reaction to the term sheet, and yet you're also asking us to pass a piece of legislation that allows them to go into RFQ for development where they're putting meaningful dollars into something that we haven't approved. Right now, from my perspective, this is, are we going to do this or not? And we don't know that answer. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse, having any type of legislation outside of approving a term sheet that we have not discussed really until today. So I think, and I'm not saying months and months and months down the road, but I think we need to work out the term sheets. And I understand that these revenue sources are sort of like, that's it. And I totally get and respect that. And so we need to just either feel comfortable with it or not, or go back to the drawing board. But I just, I feel like we should be coming at this, or the Department of Finance should be coming at this in a more neutral way. That being said,
So the request for the vote for the approval of the term sheet would not be until probably the second meeting in December. So there's 12 meetings between now and then where we're planning on discussing what's in this term sheet.
okay, and I appreciate that, because that was one of my questions, is when are y'all wanting to have these pieces of legislation passed? So I wanted to clarify, so the sales tax, the local and state portion of the sales tax, only 50% of it is going towards, so we retain 50% of that local option sales tax that goes into the general fund as normal?
No.
No. So where's,
I don't
yes.
know.
That's correct. So there are two sales tax diversions.
Right.
One is from the stadium itself. For
Yeah.
that one, 100% goes in.
Right.
For we call it and there's no good name for it, the area sales tax, that is 50% of both state and local. So 50% goes back to the revenue streams that Willie outlined. The other half goes where it normally goes.
Okay, that makes me feel better about that. There's reference to a lease amount that the Titans would pay. Do we know what that lease amount is? I'm assuming it's an annual lease payment.
It's not a fixed amount. It's measured based on ticket sales for non-NFL events. So $3 per, the way they propose to measure it is $3 per ticket sold for non-NFL events, but it's not a specific amount.
Okay, and what's the reasoning for taking out NFL events?
There's already a ticket tax on NFL events that was approved years ago for the existing stadium. This is just a convenient way for them to contribute some additional money towards the bucket of project revenues.
Okay. I will say that as far as Metro backstopping these revenue bonds, I'm never going to be in agreement with that. We've got to figure out what that's going to look like. And I understand that's probably up in the air, but that's not, I'm not interested in having a chance of our taxpayers having to pull this out of our operating fund ever. I also do not like the idea of the pilot from the water sewer continuing to go to that. That was something that we did in the past couple of years that was needed. That's not necessary. I don't think. I would like to see us take that out. And I also I feel like for the viewing audience, and from my perspective, it looks like we're doing this, right? But this to me is an option. And it seems to have been very well vetted. Y'all been having conversations about this apparently for years, which is fine, and that's a big deal, and it needs to be discussed in that manner. But there's other options. And so I feel like we would be derelict in our duty as representatives of the taxpayers of this county to not vet the other options and how that would look and how that would be financed and what, because it hasn't happened. They've just said, well, it's going to cost 1.7 to 1.95 billion to do it. So nope. And we're moving on to building the stadium. And here's this beautiful shiny building. And here's how it's going to be paid for. But we really haven't dug into the details of if we are going to renovate. So I would like to request that be looked at and have a report on. I mean, I'm sure we would lose some funding sources for sure. But what would the funding sources be?
And
for that other option.
I'm going to ask any questions that you guys have, like asking today is absolutely fine, but make sure to send an email to Danielle so we capture it. So because that, I'm sure the answer to that question is a little more complex than a couple sentences.
Yeah.
May I respond a little bit to it?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, as I indicated, I'm anxious to see that VSG report as well. I know they're on the agenda to present, I think, sometime in November. I don't know that I will have it in advance to bring you back that comparison, but I'm also interested in what does renovation look like versus new construction. But as I indicated, the revenue sources that we're contemplating for new construction will not be available for renovation. They are specific to the construction of a new stadium and in some cases a new dome stadium. And so whether that number is 500 million or 2 billion, the reality is we have to find a way to fund it. And I don't know where that exists absent taxpayer resources. So,
okay, my last question, I promise. As far as our overall fiscal health, so we would be retiring $30 million of existing bonds and trading it out for $760 for a net gain of $730 million in bonds. What does that do to our debt ratio? What could that possibly do to our bond rating? Because that's quite a bit of debt.
So these are Sports Authority debt. So when the rating agencies look at this debt, it's conduit issuer debt. It's not calculated in our debt ratio per capita. If we choose to apply the backstop, which I will note we have done on every single other transaction related. So convention center, soccer, let me be fair, convention center, one series has it, one does not. But almost every other transaction that council has approved has had that backstop. But what that means is if for some reason you default in 1 year or any multiple years, but usually you've built a reserve fund, that the general fund would have to cover that. It doesn't mean that if you borrow $100 million and you fall short in 1 year, that the subsequent, 90 million, whatever is left, it has to be covered. But that is meaningful to rating agencies, but it's more meaningful to investors. So if you show that you've defaulted, it's a small pool. The people that buy stadium debt are the same people that buy our GO or our water. So we would likely satisfy that requirement, and it would be meaningful to the rating. And that's why I'm with you. I'm really optimistic that we can get to a place where we don't have to do the backstop. But the real calculus is, do we want to pay more in interest cost to satisfy the risk for the general fund? And that's what we'll have to do the math on. And that's where, we've run multiple scenarios based on some estimates. The ticket tax number and the new events, those are numbers we're relying on the team for. And so, as I said when we met last time, we'll go back and get an actual external feasibility report. Right now, we've assumed growth, and we were assuming growth looks like this. Well, in reality, growth usually goes like this. And so that's the kind of math we will apply between, if you decide to approve the non-binding term sheet and, when we bring you back actual definitive documents, that's the kind of work we will bring back, is what does it actually look like?
I would like to get some more information on parking requirements and what that is. I mean, we're building a parking garage at the zoo that's less than 1,100 capacity, and it's over $30 million. So you're talking about real costs in a parking garage. I just want to make sure that whoever has the liability has the asset, because it looks right now like we're not getting a whole lot of that revenue that's coming in from those parking spaces. So I really want to vet that aspect out of where the money's coming from to build it and where the revenue is actually going to go and what's fair in that scenario.
Let's have you send that one to Danielle, and Councilman Parker's next, and then I've got Porterfield and Bradford. Anybody else? And okay. Hold on. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got a couple of questions about the resolution with the term sheet attached to it. The third or fourth recital says that the existing lease prohibits the development of the campus. It's my understanding that the existing lease sort of encumbers our ability to develop that area. It places requirements on it, but it does not preclude or prohibit it from being developed.
It would take practically a renegotiation of the existing lease to get to where you could develop the parts of the campus that we're talking about. There are these parking lots, and as I recall it, if you're going to, if we Metro were going to propose to develop a parcel, you would have to provide a substitute parcel in order to do that, and it would have to be within a certain distance of the existing stadium, logically. It has to be roughly rectangular and roughly the same size, so it's like it's 1-to-1. And if you were going to be in a position of negotiating something like that, you'd practically have to renegotiate the lease.
Okay, thank you. So very difficult, but not completely prohibited would be a reason.
Well, in theory, if we and the Titans agreed on some change to the lease, we could make it, but that's practically what would be required.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And then on that development of the campus piece, this RFQ, do y'all envision like the public having an opportunity to weigh in on that at some point?
Yes, and if I can, I'd like to correct what I think might have been a misconception that was in another question that I heard, and that is we're not asking you to approve an RFP through this process. We're asking for permission to issue an RFQ, and then RFP. We'll bring the contracts back to you to approve ultimately, assuming we can get to a developer.
Yes, sir. And if I may, we often hear that from the administration, and I appreciate that fact, but I'm more interested in what is it that's going to be in that request. So at what point is there going to be any opportunity for the public to say, here are our priorities for development of the campus, and then that goes into the RF. So, because, these things come to us with an up or down vote. We don't get to negotiate. We don't get to change the terms of the request. So is there an opportunity that you see there?
I'm sure there will be some opportunities for public input, and in the legislation seeking council's approval for this process, there are some goals that we understand the council and administration share for the development. And chief among them would be affordable housing. So there will be opportunities for, both in the development of the RFP and in the exchanges with potential development partners for people to say, this is what we want to see in there. Yes, this is a long, complicated process.
On the request piece, is there any way that rather than bringing a contract to us for approval, you could bring a request to us for approval before you send it out?
We could do that. That it builds in some extra time that we're not sure we have at the moment. It would, to stay with the development schedule. Part of what you heard Mr. Oldham talk about was the importance of at least some of the parts of the campus that are closest to the stadium being developed at the same time. Obviously, you don't want to have to dig stuff up that has just been put in. So to stay with that schedule, it would be tough to build in a whole lot more legislative process on that. Is it possible? Yes.
Okay, but it sounds like y'all would prefer not to.
To stay with the optimal schedule, it would be hard to build in that extra time.
Understood. Okay, and then third, this is just a very quick question. On the third page, the signatures, whose signature is that, the Metropolitan attorney?
It's probably mine. Sorry.
I don't look like a cross, but, I'm just curious.
My second grade handwriting teacher would agree with you.
I'll come show you after I'm done asking these questions. And okay, the other question I had about local option sales tax revenue. So it's my understanding that state law requires half of our local option sales tax to go to schools, and that as a policy choice, we put 2/3 of it towards schools. So does that mean that what is being captured by these districts is, well, I guess, is this a total capture of the local option sales tax, or are we still having the schools portion go to schools, or how will that work?
So again, the in stadium, and I know I'm repeating myself, the in stadium is 100%. So it's going in the project. The area sales tax, the state law doesn't say, all it says is 50% goes to the project, 50% goes to Metro. Statute doesn't dictate then what you do with it. And so you could, I think this body could decide to do with that 50% what it does with every other local option sales tax dollar.
Okay, the what I just said about the half and the 2/3, half by state law and 2/3 by, I guess, Metro policy, that's from the revenue manual. So
you could, so if you got, so if $1 came in, this is that way, don't do that. $2 comes in.
yeah,
You only get $1. You could do 67 cents to schools and 33 cents to the
okay.
general fund.
So we would be cutting it up after.
That's
okay.
right.
So okay.
That's right.
And then on the local option sales tax, like, is there? My read of this is that no matter how high the reserves get, no matter how well funded capital expenditures is, we don't start getting contributions to the general fund from these tax capture districts. I hear that we have the ability to repeal the 1% hotel tax. That's not bringing money to the general fund. That's just relieving the tax burden on hotel visitors. So has that been contemplated in the negotiations about, can we say like, oh, here's a ceiling, like, this bucket of capital reserve fund can only hold so much, and then after that it flows to the general fund again. Has that been contemplated?
At this point, what the term sheet contemplates is what you described, is that the hotel tax is the thing that could be turned off, and only if every bit of debt, every bit of Sports Authority debt related to this project is paid, only if the capital reserve is funded to, I think, the 120% level, and then also to the extent that we do identify sales tax eligible infrastructure, I hate these terms, that we have elected to fund with that, only to the extent that we've retired that debt too. And so, yeah, at the moment, it's just the hotel tax.
Okay.
As the off switch.
I'm just thinking about, like the oft-discussed tourism development zone that ended up collecting, these massive reserves, and the sort of discourse around that, and the efforts to sort of get some of that into the general fund that have been some varying degrees of successful. So I think that would be something that I would really appreciate a harder look at, is putting a ceiling on these accounts of some kind. And then the last question I have, I think kind of around that point, is, when we talk about the sort of the two paths, the renovation or rebuild, we talk about let's just say it's the 1.8 figure. We all agree with that. That's to do the renovation and to maintain it through the life of the lease. So this new lease would be for up to 45 years, is my understanding. And so, we talk about $2.1 billion to build. What is the anticipated maintenance and capital costs, for 45 years of that $2 billion facility, so that we can sort of do an apples to apples comparison of the 1.8 to the 2.1 plus X?
Sam, I thought you were directing questions.
Somebody, one of them is going to tell you they don't know.
Yeah, for sure. We don't know yet. But we know enough to know that we need to get it, right? But that's kind of the homework we have yet to do. That's why and I'm going to caveat that flow chart again. That is very generous. These are available revenues. And to your previous question, right? Like, I don't disagree. We should contemplate caps on those other sources, but we're still negotiating with them. And I know about an hour ago it sounded like I was their biggest fan, but there is a reality, like, we're negotiating with them. So I tell them a lot, don't tell me how to spend my money. And so something like a cap that isn't material to that negotiation isn't something we're contemplating as kind of part of the definitive documents. But not, to your point, something we should contemplate, for council comfort level. And the same way, we know we have to get the homework on what is the recurring capital costs going to be, but right now it's all just flowing through, and we're kind of looking at what is the biggest pot we can create, and will that scratch that itch? And so until they can kind of get further along in design and planning, I know we saw a picture, but what does that all cost? It's hard to know what it's going to cost to maintain it for 30 or 45 years. And so that's kind of the blessing we're trying to give them over the next couple of months, is to go do that homework so that we can keep doing our homework.
Thank you. And lastly, just something that would be really helpful for me is, like, sometimes when I'm working on a budget for a project, I'll sort of come up with my low, middle, and high estimates. So, what would these funding sources potentially bring on the low end? Let's say football decreases in popularity and we're in an 8-year recession, and like, this is the least we can expect to like pull here. And then like what we think is going to happen, and then what'll happen if this thing is just like a massive success, an unprecedented success, and brings in just tons and tons of money. Like just being able to see, like, what is that, like, cash on hand? What does capital expenses look like across that 45-year period? Just, it doesn't have to be binding or anything, just to help me wrap my head around what's being proposed, just seeing some numbers plugged into a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we've put together, and we haven't circulated it yet, a historical kind of 10-year, I think, look back for the hotel tax and the sales tax. The harder one is the ticket tax, because the proposal contemplates new events that we haven't seen, and what is the volume of those events, and what does that generate? So that one's still a little wonky. I think we circulated like a 1/3, 2/3. Was that the number that we had at one point? I know Tom had
Well,
a
and
number.
to the point on this, I'm sure there's some detailed pro formas somewhere. And if you could submit a question to Danielle asking for the mayor's office pro formas on this, that would be a starting point.
Will do. And okay, one last, I promise, last follow-up. You mentioned ticket tax, and, just looking at, that's a hard dollar amount as contemplated right now, $3, is that correct?
Yeah, I called it by the wrong name, but the existing ticket tax, $3. The rent that we're contemplating is $3 per non-NFL event.
Is there any talk of maybe making that a percentage?
Per ticket.
Is there any talk of making that a percentage so that it kind of keeps pace with inflation, or like ticket prices, rather than a fixed cost, $22?
We have not currently contemplated that, but that is something we could contemplate.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for today. Thank you all so much for being here. Very informative.
All right, thank you. So at this point, I've got Portfield, Bradford, Cash. Anybody else want to hop in the queue? All right, Councilmember Porterfield, you're next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for acknowledging me. Excellent questions by my colleagues already. A few of the questions that I have already been answered, so I'll skip over those. I did have a clarifying, some clarity. The director, you mentioned a 4 to 6 month window, giving us time to truly vet the deal. But I know that the term sheet vote you mentioned will likely be the second meeting in December. So I was wondering if I could get just a little bit more clarity on the legislative timeline that you all are looking at. One of my concerns, I believe my colleague, the chair, he expressed it so eloquently, so I won't rehash that, but it is a little concerning that we're being asked to vote on this as a good faith effort. I definitely understand the Titans, not wanting to continue to invest if they feel this Metro is not vested on our end, but I do think that it is alarming if we're saying that this is non-binding, but we are also saying, hey, you voted on this. So if you could give some clarity around that legislative timeline, I would appreciate it.
So now I actually have a calendar in front of me, so it makes it slightly more fun. But we just filed the legislation on Friday, so we'll see the agenda on next Tuesday's meeting. And we need 3 meetings for the hotel tax, so that would bring us, I think, Jameson, is that the 5th of December? Is that a meeting day? Yay. Okay, so I said the second meeting, but that would, as early as the earliest it could come up for a vote would be December 5th. Keep me honest. Is that right? 6? Sorry, 6. 6, December 6th, sorry. I guess it would be at Finance Committee on the 5th.
So the 4 to 6 month timeline, is that saying you're not saying 4 to 6 months for us to start voting on things, obviously?
No, so I would expect probably in February-ish, if we can really hustle and get all those definitive documents, which again would be like the lease agreement, the non-relocation agreement, all those kind of documents to you. If we got those to you in February, I would think the same 3-meeting timeline, which got me into early April, late March. October, November, December, January, February, March-ish.
Thank you. And then I had a clarifying question. This may help with the viewing audience as well. You mentioned the Stadium Village. Is the Stadium Village and the East Bank development, are those the same projects, or are those two different projects?
So maybe I'll just take a step back and we can all level set on definitions. So there was the East Bank Vision Plan, which is 338 acres, which includes both what we call the campus, the village, and the stadium site. That is on currently Metro-owned land, which is about 120 acres in that central waterfront neighborhood. What we're talking about is the stadium site, and there's an appendix in the back of the slideshow that has a depiction of this, but there's about a 15-acre stadium site, and there are 2 parcels of land on the north and south portion of what is now lots A, B, C, and D. Those 2 parcels are the North Village and the South Village. We just kind of collectively call it the village. The city will have economic rights and development rights on the village portion and the rest of the city-owned land as part of this new deal. The rest of the campus, what we call campus, is basically other city-owned land on the East Bank, not including village and stadium. And I'm not sure if I made that more clear or less clear.
There's a picture of it on the last page of the term sheet.
Thank you.
I broke the thing, so I can.
Yeah, so the viewing audience can't see that, right? So that I just want to make sure that we're kind of, if someone is tuning in, I want to make sure that that's clear. So my follow-up question to that is, when you talked about the $2 billion, the infrastructure for the Stadium Village is included in the $2 billion. Is that also inclusive of the infrastructure costs that will be needed to develop out the East Bank development?
No, it does include, as Jeff mentioned, the stadium and the village infrastructure, and there are a whole lot of reasons that he mentioned on why you would include those in the same, just from practical development purposes. So that the village, which again, city land, and the stadium site are included in the 2.1. The rest of the infrastructure on the rest of the campus is pretty dependent on what ultimately is determined to be built there, which is going to be consistent to Councilman Parker's question about, like, how are we thinking about developing the RFQ? It's going to be consistent. I mean, this is why we did the East Bank Vision Plan, to understand what the community impact is and make sure that any RFQ aligns with those recommendations and community vision. So I guess to try and answer your question, the campus infrastructure, we won't know a definitive number probably until we really have a development partner on board post RFQ, because one of the first questions we're gonna ask is, how much of the campus infrastructure are you willing to take on? We'll need to we have okay projections, I guess, post East Bank plan, but if a developer comes in and says, oh, actually, to Councilmember Druffle's question of, like, actually you need to do a pretty large amount of grading for, making sure the resiliency on the site works, we're not going to know that until we're a little bit farther along in the process with a development partner. So it's a little bit harder to answer the dollar amount on the rest of the campus infrastructure, and that, to put a point on it, that is not included in the $2.1 billion.
Okay, thank you. And then my last two, I'll be brief. I'll try to be brief. One thing that I keep kind of hearing from constituents, and there's just not clarity around. So if someone from administration can help clarify this, we keep hearing like this is coming like at no expense to the taxpayers, not assume that is no money being directly coming out of the general fund is what I'm assuming that should correlate to me. But this, I'm assuming that this is contingent upon, the new stadium build is contingent upon the redevelopment of East Bank if we're using part of the East Bank tax dollars for the development, for the rebuilding of the new stadium. So if this is contingent upon the building of the East Bank development, and we would need infrastructure money for the building of the East Bank development, then this would be at a cost to taxpayers, is my understanding. First part of that question. Second part of that question, revenue that would, tax dollars that would come from the East Bank development are going to build in the new stadium. That is money that would not go into the general fund as well. So that is also taxpayer money. So can you clarify that, or am I missing it?
No, but I might ask you to repeat the questions as I go, and I'll ask Director Flannery to jump in here as well.
You want me to start? Sure.
Well, okay. Yeah, you start.
Let's see what happens.
Well, actually, I wanted to clarify because I think the framing was flipped. The East Bank, we are not doing the stadium. Well, we do not have the rights to develop the rest of the East Bank, the city-owned portion of the East Bank, unless we tear up the current lease. That land is encumbered under the current lease, as Tom pointed out. I can't remember in response to what question. And so those go hand in hand. And so I think what I heard was it was flipped of we're only doing the stadium because we're doing the East Bank, but we're only doing the East Bank because if we have the opportunity to do the new stadium. So I think that's an important distinction. And then Director Flannery, I'll let you talk about tax dollars.
Sure. Specific to the $760 million contribution, that is not going to divert any existing general revenue dollar to pay debt service. It's going to rely on the, and I wish I hadn't broken the slide, but on the revenue sources identified on slide 5. I have a hard copy. I just wish I could share it with everyone. Which would be the new 1% hotel tax. Again, that does not currently exist. It wouldn't be a diversion. The 100% of the state and local sales tax, the 50% of the state and local sales tax, the $3 existing ticket tax, which does not go in the general fund now, and then the $3 per ticket rent that we're contemplating on the non-revenue events. So for our $760 million contribution, or Metro's 760, it's not taking anything that currently goes to the general fund and moving it anywhere else. And we're hopeful that the portion of the pilot that does pay the existing stadium right now, that we can eliminate that requirement, at least once the stadium gets open and running. I mean, the reality is these revenues won't start generating until there's events, so we might have to rely on that pilot for a couple years longer, but the goal is not to have it in the long term.
Thank you. My last question, Chair. And I don't know if this is the meeting for it or if it needs to be asked at a different meeting, but if we are to entertain the renovation, and it does seem that everything is kind of skewed towards the new stadium, but if we determine to do the renovation, I know earlier this year, renovation costs were looking at $300 million. In February, renovation costs were estimated to be $600 million. Now renovation costs are $1.75 billion. Do we know how it or what caused the jump? I mean, that's a significant jump. So do we know why it's so much more than what we were thinking or what someone was thinking?
Yeah, so I is it November 9th?
November 7.
So we've asked Venue Solutions Group Chairman has asked Venue Solutions Group to come present to you all the report that was commissioned to help us make that determination and analyzed kind of what they did. The 2017 study that you referenced, that was the $300 million. That was not for renovation. That study had a different purpose. But they'll give you a full breakdown, we suspect, and the chairman, I think, requested that you all get the report at least a week in advance of that November 7th meeting. So I think they've promised it by the end of the month. They sent a letter last week. I think they're on track to hit that timeline. So.
Thanks. And then before Councilman Bradford, just one follow-up on Director Flannery's comment. I want to be, is it your position that all of the sales tax in the 130 acres is new found money without any erosion of sales tax revenue anywhere else in the county?
I don't know that we could say that definitively.
All right, then I would personally appreciate if the talking point of it's all new revenue is at least got to hang an asterisk on it, except to the extent that the new spending in the 130 acres happens to erode sales tax currently collected. I know for sure if I eat lunch on the downtown side of the river today and my sales tax goes to the capture zone for the convention center, and 5 years from now I walk across the river and eat lunch in the 130 acres and my sales tax goes to the stadium capture zone, it's not new money. It just got pushed around from one capture zone to the next. And I think that talking point is, at least at the margins, not entirely accurate for the public. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me since I'm not on this committee. I had earlier this week submitted a list of questions, and when I get those answers back, I'll forward them to council office. But I had one question, and Councilmember Porterfield was kind of along the same lines, but it made me more confused because my question was about, we're saying that these revenue bonds are going to be repaid by the revenue generated by a redeveloped East Bank. Well, it's going to take time to redevelop the East Bank. So my question was, and I think Councilmember Porterfield was kind of going this way, was what do we do in the meantime when we're waiting for this revenue to generate? And I was thinking, I was hearing your answer is that the revenue is not from the entire East Bank. We're only looking at collecting the revenue from the 130 acres. Did I understand that correct? Or are we looking at the revenue from the entire 300 acres going back to the bond?
I think I can give you maybe even a little bit more comfort. So, and again, I appreciate we have not brought you a robust financing plan or any financing plan for that matter, because we are still negotiating. So it is difficult to take revenues off the table and not keep telling everyone I need them all when you're negotiating. So I'm going to keep saying that I need every single dime. But the basket of revenues that we're contemplating, what we're contemplating around the campus-wide sales tax expectation is only a phase one, very conservative estimate because we don't know what it's going to look like yet. So we're confident that between the hotel occupancy tax, the 100% sales tax, and 50%, the $3 ticket tax, and the $3 non-event ticket tax rent, or whatever we're calling it, that we can fund the 760 contribution and not have to rely on the entire 130 acres. And that'll come, at a later date. That is the goal and the expectation.
I appreciate that because, when we look at the East Bank, there's a very large tract of land that I know mayors have been trying for decades to get that to my knowledge, we don't have any agreement or any plans to relocate PSC Metals, which is a large portion of the East Bank. And my concern was if we're expecting the East Bank to pay for this, and we've got a portion of the East Bank that we have no future plans as of yet, that's a large chunk of missing revenue. Now, a second question that came up with listening to some of the answers, the cost overall, we're hearing it's $2.1 billion for this whole project. And we've heard answers that this $2.1 billion includes the stadium and the village. Did I understand that correctly?
Just the village infrastructure.
So just the stadium and the village infrastructure is $2.1 billion.
Stadium, so could pull up the slide, I guess, but it's the project site costs associated with the 15-acre stadium, and that includes all the infrastructure necessary to open the stadium, and then it also includes the infrastructure necessary to develop the two village parcels.
So any development of the village itself, the buildings, landscaping, whatnot, that's not part of the 2.1 billion. Just the infrastructure, streets, sewer, lights.
Correct, but we part of the negotiations is that we have the economic rights on those village parcels. So any development, that's actually what the RFQ, part of the RFQ is for us to find a development partner for the city to develop those parcels, and then we would capture the property taxes, the ground rent, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I've got, and like I said, I'll forward any answers I get from my other questions to Ms. Godin.
Thank you very much. And so that goes to Councilmember Cash.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are about the 130-acre zone and the collection from that. I mean, one of the goals here with doing a new lease and a new stadium is that one of the things that we're touting is that we're protecting the general fund, and it's that 130-acre 50% sales tax collection that is either the most fluid or the most what I'm having a little more trouble getting my head around. And I noticed for the first time today that it's not that the language, at least in the term sheet, doesn't say 130 acres, it says up to 130 acres. So I guess my questions are around that, and in financing, in the financial projections, are we assuming that we're drawing a boundary around the full 130 acres that we can, and also like when we draw those lines, and I understand that like Metro goes first and then the state approves or not. I know the state has a role in that, but so do we get a one-shot time at drawing those lines, or 15, 20 years down the road we see that development that is more rich in collecting sales tax is somewhere like right outside of it? Or I guess, do we have any flexibility? Not that we should do it every year or anything like that, but at some point in a 45-year lease, do we have some flexibility about redrawing those lines, either because we shrink it a little bit because we see that we're collecting a lot of money, more than we need, the reserve fund is where it needs to be, and we see that we're capturing more of that sales tax than we need, and we reduce it. So just questions about how that 130 acres or up to 130 acres is working or can work for us.
Sure. So we don't have a recommendation for you today on what the size or where that sales tax capture zone should be. We're working with planning, Perkins, other consultants we're working with to come up with a recommendation. Ultimately, this body will need to approve it, and then the commissioner of F&A will sign off. That's the state component I think you were speaking to. And then do you want to speak to the second part?
Well, just a few details. Yeah, he and you had already hit on the approval process. You had it just right. Sam's right. The administration doesn't have a recommendation about the 130 acres. I think it's safe to assume that 65 or 60, whatever the developable acreage is within the campus itself, those will be the first acres in. Beyond that, I don't know. One of the things about the duration, I keep talking about the 100% in stadium. That diversion happens as long as there is an NFL team in the stadium. This diversion's shorter than that. It happens. It's it's the lesser of 30 years or 2056, basically. So this one won't go 45 years under any. I just wanted to get that in.
Okay, that's still, I'm still curious about, like, once we draw those 130 acres or up to 130 acres, is it a one-time shot? Once we do it, it's a done deal for the duration?
There's no provision for going back and tweaking the lines. The statute doesn't contemplate that. It contemplates a one-time, your approval, state blessing.
And how are those, what's our process for doing that? Like what department is responsible for that? I'm assuming that we don't draw the lines. We are presented with something from Metro and we approve it or tweak it or?
The expectation would be that we would provide you with a recommendation in the form of legislation that you would approve.
And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I guess I'm about to try. I assume that the answer to the question is, without a development partner to program what the heck is going to go in the area, their pro forma about sales tax is, I mean, I don't want to call it at a dartboard, but it's not fully mature yet. And I would bet that when push comes to shove, if we imagine a hypothetical high sales tax generator at the edge, you could imagine a scenario where you definitely want it in the zone to make sure you can pay for the stadium, or you can imagine a scenario like, oh no, there's plenty of revenue there already, let's carve it out. And I'm guessing that they're going to say, yeah, Bob, we're still thinking about all that. But I think without a development partner, we certainly couldn't have any idea what should be drawn in or drawn out. That's part of the not ready for prime time part of it. What do you guys think about that?
Chair, can I offer just one? Maybe it's not exactly the question you asked, but it reminded me of something, and Director Flannery may kick me for saying this, and I'll caveat what I'm saying with like repeating what she said. The finance plan has not been figured out, but there is some truth in what you said, and one truth that the bonds for the stadium are going to lean heavily on the hotel tax and the in-stadium sales tax. That will be the two driving, and the ticket tax rent, because those are the most discernible. And so
you guys got to stop calling it ticket tax rent. It
will lean.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think it's just worth repeating that those will be the bell cows of the revenue streams.
Gotcha. Anybody else have questions? Like Director Flannery and everybody else, really appreciate you guys coming today. Do you have a final?
Well, no, I just wanted to thank you again for hosting this. In life, you don't get to pick your problems, and this is a problem, right? Like, we have an unfunded liability, and we'll find out next week if it's $300 million or $1 billion or $2 billion. But whatever it is, it's real, and it's unfunded. And so I think it's brave of this whole group and council as well to address this problem and come up with a solution. And maybe this is it, maybe it's not, but it shouldn't be lost on us that it's a lift to address the problem. So thank you for taking the time. And thanks for hosting us.
I appreciate it. And we've got we need to talk about the upcoming schedule of meetings, and y'all are welcome to stay where you're at or take off. Either way is fine. Council members, there was a schedule hopefully distributed to y'all that back when today's meeting was going to be on September 14, we had a schedule of 12 meetings that was going to take place over about 75 days. And this reflects trying to squeeze what was going to be 75 days down to 45 days. And I necessarily needed to act to try to get some things scheduled before we had a meeting. Hopefully that's okay with you all. This schedule is mature, and other than one of the public comment meeting locations, we've got confirmation. So I'm happy to, if somebody's going to tell me I screwed up, I want to hear about it so we can work around it. But if it's generally okay, this will be the schedule. All right, I'll take that as generally okay. Please make sure, council members, send questions to Daniel Godin in the council office, and we'll get answers. The next meeting will be on November 2nd in the chamber at 4:30 p.m. The Titans will present about community benefits platform. We'll hear from Ms. Darby about community benefits agreements and working to get a panel of community advocates gets to talk about community benefit agreements. I know this is a topic where there's a bunch of different perspectives, and I'm trying to give airtime to the perspectives. And so that's the next meeting, November 2nd. Thanks, everybody.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.